New Zealand. Greece is the word, as you would know by now, as you wake and join another working week in this well-functioning country. So Greece, the nation, votes on whether to accept the terms of an international bailout, a bailout that's technically no longer even on the table. Almost half of the votes have been counted now, and at this stage the noes have it with more than 60% of the votes. So, you know, it's probably time to call it. Europe correspondent Melissa Davies joins us now from Greece. Mel, let's talk about the mood. We'll talk about the actual vote in a minute. When you arrived there, I mean, were people very apprehensive? People that you met, did you get the feeling that they understood the significance of this?
Absolutely. We went down to Syntagma Square, which is just behind me by the Parliament buildings, just as the polls closed, and there were no campaigners there particularly who were kind of on their megaphones with pleas of desperation and very passionate and very concerned, and it was kind of a very tense time. It was only about an hour before the votes started coming in, but yeah, certainly you got the impression that people were heavily invested in the outcome, even though it really brings a lot more questions than answers.
I mean, it's very hard for us to understand because it is a very complex business, because effectively they're voting for something that no longer exists. Did you get the feeling that people really understood the difference between a yes and a no vote?
No, absolutely not, because I got the impression that even people that voted no are divided themselves. So a lot of people who voted no aren't necessarily voting no because they want to get out of the euro. They just don't want to accept this bailout plan, the austerity package that was put together by the euro leaders. And then there are a smaller number, it seems, just anecdotally, who voted no, who want out of the euro altogether. So it was a very confusing question, and I think people who were voting no weren't necessarily united.
All right, so behind you now, for the people on Radio Live and that they can't see, and actually it's not very easy to see behind you anyway, but it looks like something of a celebration. Greeks are bloody funny, aren't they? They're living in a country that's a cock case and they'll celebrate anything. I mean, now that it's obvious that it's going towards no, what's happening? Tell me what's happening around you.
Well, the no campaigners have really made this their base anyway. So there were a few hundred, but just within the last hour there are thousands of people that are crowding into the square, which is just in front of the Parliament buildings. We just know, we've just found out that at the Parliament buildings now the leader of the opposition is now meeting with the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. So we expect to have some more information following that meeting. But outside the meeting they have I guess people on loudspeakers, there's music, it's very much of a festival party atmosphere. There were concerns before the vote count that there might be some kind of lawlessness, but that certainly doesn't seem to be the feeling here now. I was here 4 years ago when there were riots, and that was against a right-wing government, and people were chipping the marble off the hotel steps here and throwing it at police, but it's certainly a very different atmosphere here tonight.
All right, Mel, one of the issues, of course, irrespective of whether it's a yes or a no, and it looks like it's going to be a no, is the fact that these people want to get access to their money. Banks have been closed. It's been unreliable at the ATMs. Have people been given any assurances with regard to access to money?
Well, the Greek foreign minister said that the banks would open regardless on Tuesday, but really there's no guarantee that the ECB is going to guarantee liquidity. International creditors had said a no vote would choke liquidity. So whether they can actually open the banks on Tuesday is still a bit of an unknown, and the Greek foreign minister in the same breath had said that he expects banks to run out of money perhaps within hours of this vote being counted. So that is still very much up in the air, and there were still queues outside ATMs across the city as we arrived in today.
All right, Mel, thank you very much for that. We will cross back later. Mel Davies, our Europe correspondent. So it's probably about 3 hours away before the definitive vote, but with half the votes counted, 60% are a no. So that's the way it's going to go.